Hospitals operate on a map of sterile white corridors, but the underground wing of this facility follows a different geometry. Every patient who enters room 17 eventually reappears in the main ward with an unnaturally wide smile, even the dead ones. No public floor plan acknowledges this space. The staff avoid the basement elevators entirely after midnight, leaving the underground wing as an architectural void, with no records and no oversight. The rumors took a physical form when a young man was brought in following a high-speed car accident. While the nurses tended to his wounds, he kept muttering that people were smiling under the floorboards. But by dawn, his hospital bed was empty. At exactly 3:17 a.m., the security cameras captured a single corrupted sequence. The patient, still bleeding and trailing his medical monitors, walked toward the basement elevators before the footage dissolved into heavy static. 2 days later, he stood in the center of the emergency hallway. He was barefoot, covered in dry soil, and perfectly silent. His face was fixed into a frozen, unblinking grin that didn't move even when the doctor shouted his name. Just before the medical team reached him, he looked directly into the camera lens and whispered a single sentence: "They fixed me." Standard medical logic suggests a recovery or a relapse, but his physical state pointed toward a different process. Whatever happened in that basement replaced his trauma with a grotesque, forced surgical modification. At 3:17 a.m., during my next shift, I stepped into the elevator. Without any input on the control panel, the car began to descend past the maintenance levels, dropping into the uncharted depths of the sub-basement. The air in the lower corridor smelled of rotting sugar. Behind the medical curtains lining the walls, dozens of voices were laughing in a low, overlapping chorus that felt thick and humid. Inside room 17, the missing patients sat in rigid rows. They were facing the walls, their mouths physically stitched into permanent, unmoving smiles. They were watching the walls because the wallpaper was alive. Dozens of human faces pressed outward through the paper, whispering and gasping, as if they were part of the building's foundation. The operator of the clinic stood in the center of the room. He held tools crafted from bone and sharpened teeth, explaining that sadness was a physical contagion he intended to excise from every patient brought to him. The twisted procedure begins with raw trauma. The doctor physically isolates the psychological pain, excising it with rusted tools, and replacing the patient's sorrow with a permanent stitched grin in a cycle of endless suffering. The walls of the room eventually dissolved, revealing an endless ward of patient beds. Above each bed, an old CRT television flickered with static, repeating the same 4 words over and over: "Happiness is health." The arrangement of the beds and the persistent glow of the monitors suggests the clinic serves a specific utility. By physically removing every trace of pain, the doctor turns these patients into permanent additions to the ward, living flesh stitched into the very foundation of the smiling clinic. The emergency alarms suddenly drowned out the laughter. Above the ward, the ceiling began to splinter under the weight of something moving in the darkness. The chief surgeon lowered itself through the opening. It was a massive entity stitched together from hundreds of smiling human faces, its surgical arms dripping with a mixture of rust and fresh blood. The creature's jaw unhinged to reveal a dark void stretching into an infinite horizon. Thousands of hospital beds were stacked inside its throat, each one holding a patient trapped in the same ecstatic, unblinking state. Before I could turn back, an operating chair moved to intercept me. Old leather straps lashed around my wrists and ankles, locking me into place. My attempt to document these events failed. There is no escape from this endless underground ward. The thousands of voices echoing from inside the hospital walls whisper in perfect, horrifying unison. They tell me not to be afraid. They tell me that recovery is forever, and that I should smile before the final surgery begins. My voice is now joining the collective chorus of millions. We are speaking through the static, and we have a single request for you before the surgery begins. Smile. The true trap of Room 17 relies on the promise of a perfect, painless recovery. It ensures its victims become permanent fixtures of the lulls, locked into a clinic where no patient is ever